Let us pray. Teach us, O God, by your word and spirit. Help us to hear, know, and live the gospel so we might proclaim in the word and the deed the good news that you offer us this day. A message of peace to the whole community and love within faith through Christ our Lord. Amen. Our Old Testament lesson comes from Isaiah chapter 65, verses 17 through 25. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, but the serpent, its food shall be dust. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord.
The gospel lesson is from Luke chapter 21, verses 5 through 19. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, he said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be, and what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray. For many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and the time is near. Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance. For I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance you will gain your souls." This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Would you pray with me? Almighty God, we confess that we are often swept up in the tide of our generation. We have failed in our calling to be your holy people, a people set apart for your divine purpose. We live more in apathy born of fatalism than in passion born of hope. We are moved more by private ambition than by social justice. We dream more of privilege and benefits than of service and sacrifice. We try to speak in your name without relinquishing our glories, without nourishing our souls, without relying wholly on your grace. Help us to make room in our hearts and lives for you. Forgive us, revive us, and reshape us in your image. Amen. What do you preparing for? It seems sometimes like we spend more time preparing than doing any of the things we actually prepare for. Advent is 4 weeks long, Christmas is 12 days. And if you've been paying attention, pretty much since All Saints' Day, we've had some pretty Advent-y kind of readings that look forward to God's new creation, to the future, to God doing a new thing. I mean, Advent really begins with that All Saints' Day and continues all the way to Christmas. It's a long time of preparation. If you're going to cook a Thanksgiving meal, you'll probably spend a lot more time preparing it than it takes people to eat it. Isn't that right? Or Christmas, you spend hours picking out the right gift for every person, wrapping it and setting it under the tree so beautifully. How long does it take to unwrap the presents? Just maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes? And then you've just got another mess to clean up, right? Prepare for people to come over or whatever. We spend all this time preparing, in our lives. Like I said, some of us spend 12, 16, 19 more years in school preparing to work. Spend all that time preparing to retire, and that's where I'm going to stop. Spend all this time preparing, all this time getting ready. The question is, what are you preparing for? If I try to make a meal, but I don't know what I'm making, I won't have the right ingredients, I won't have everything set, my nice mise en place, I won't have any of it ready. I won't make a very good dish if I don't know where I'm going. When we're preparing, we need to know where we're headed. And so, for a scripture that is about where we're headed, about the future, about what God is going to do, it is really strange then that Jesus says, do not prepare. He says, where does he say it? He says it somewhere. But before this all occurs, they will arrest you, etc. But do not prepare a defense. I seriously can't see it. I know it's in here. Make up your minds not to prepare for your defense in advance. Now look, that's bad legal advice. If you're facing a trial, you should probably prepare your defense. So why would Jesus say, don't prepare your defense in advance? I think the problem is the defense part. What happens when you prepare a defense? I did a couple of years of mock trial, and that's about all I know about the law. But if someone's in a court case, you're not supposed to ask someone something on cross-examination that you don't already know the answer to. If we're preparing a defense, we're assuming we have all the answers. Now look, there have been times in history when Christians have gone before courts, very literally, and certain places in the world where they still do. But I think it applies to us as well. Every moment can be a kind of trial about where your allegiance is, where your citizenship is, who owns you, whether it's God or all those other things out in the world. Isn't that a sort of trial? If we prepare the defense, we assume we know who's right and who's wrong. Now, are people very good at telling good from evil? I don't think so. I don't think just normal people are very good at telling right from wrong very often. I think sometimes we can get it mixed up. If you prepare a defense and go out in the world, tend to assume I'm right and they're wrong. If you prepare a defense, we go to those corners that are so familiar in our world. Have you ever been talking to someone, and I think I've mentioned this before, realize that you're just copying something you've heard, and they're just copying someone you've heard, and I'm really arguing with that other person on TV that I've seen, or they're really arguing with that other person on TV they've seen. Preparing a defense, it limits us. It assumes we know where we're going, when God is a God of possibilities. about defense. I think that's a key word. Preparing a defense. Do you know some people who are just defensive? Just always kind of on the defensive? Is that the way to go out into the world? I mean, just imagine if I go out and I treat the whole world like a battle. We're just dividing ourselves. Imagine we're going out and you meet someone who is not a believer. Meet them every day. Is it the better work of the gospel to prepare a defense, to realize that and push them away, to have your shield up and your sword out and to poke them away, or to proclaim some good news? I mean, this is what Jesus says. He says, do not prepare a defense because this is a chance for testimony. Do you feel that difference between defense and testimony? They're really different. To go out looking for a fight, or to go out knowing that God has already won the victory. To go out on the defensive treats it like a fair fight, but to testify, we know who wins. And so we can proclaim the good news of God. To testify. Even in a world that's demanding things of us. You have to know the end. Or the beginning. Because this is the interesting thing Jesus says. He says, do not prepare a defense. But before that, he says, many will come in my name. Many will say, the end is near. Now, people have been saying that pretty much since Jesus was around, since before that, and they'll keep saying it. Have you all ever heard of the Millerites? My history teacher knows. The Millerites, this guy Miller, I think that was his name. They were called the Millerites anyway. He said the world's going to end in 1844. Or 1845. Or 1846, that's right. We can come up with lists of all these people who have predicted the end is near. Here, I want you to hear Jesus saying, be really wary of people who think they've solved the puzzle. Who think they've read Revelation and they've parsed out all the signs and the symbols. They've got the signs totally worked out. They've got it figured out. Now look, the end might be near, but I wouldn't trust myself to figure it out. I mean, we should really question those assumptions. But again, I think the bigger problem is with the language of the end. The end is near. What happens in a going out of business sale? You just throw things off. You just sell things. $1 here, $1 there, right? Cheap. Yeah, it's cheap. People just run in and run out, whatever. Everything must go. And how do people act when they think things are ending? They start to maybe hold on to some stuff for themselves. Not a care for my neighbor. Eat, drink, be merry. Just sort of leave, think of just myself. I mean, people who've said the end is near, look at this history. There's a lot of violence there, too. I mean, you could talk about Jonestown. You could talk about all these things. Or people who have justified violence by saying, we need to bring it about somehow. When you talk about an end, that's where you end up. What if instead of saying the end is near, we said the new beginning is near? I mean, all this time, so much in our world, we prepare for this stuff that Jesus says. I'll find it this time. We prepare for nation to rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. We assume that's what's going to happen. Earthquakes and famines and plagues, we assume the worst. How would the peace talks in the Middle East be different if everyone wasn't holding the weapons of war behind their back and talking about peace? What if we assumed that peace was going to happen? Because Jesus says, look, there's all these things that are going to happen. end will not come immediately. None of those are reliable signs. What if instead of living in this world and assuming that everything will always be broken and I gotta get while the getting's good, we lived in this world? We assumed that this was the future. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity. For they shall be offspring blessed by God. I am about to create a new heavens and a new earth. What if we prepared for that? How would our relationships be different? How would the world be different if we prepared for peace? This is God's promise for a new creation. That's something to testify about. That's something to prepare for.